but one thing that a lot of these emails had in common was it seemed like what people really related to was the kind of everyday sexism, like everyday double standards, like he's a stud, she's a slut. So I figured that instead of kind of going to the next level of feminism, that I would scale it back a notch and take it back to basics and really write a book that was just like a handbook of everyday sexism and how to handle it in kind of fun, short, pithy essays. And in my ever-longing quest to constantly bring women into feminism in a really subversive and sneaky way, we decided, my publisher and I decided to make it super commercial looking and to not put feminism in the title and to try to get it like in Urban Outfitters and shit like that so that people would be like, oh, what's this? And pick it up and then be inundated with the feminism and be switched over. So it was kind of sneaky, but I'm all about sneaky feminism. So I'm just going to read you a couple of the double standards. He's tough, she's a tomboy. And this one I like, and this is actually the first time I'm reading from this book, so this is fun. This one I like because I think a lot of these double standards affect men negatively as well, and it's something that we need to talk about more often, how traditional gender binaries really fuck men up, too. So he's tough, she's a tomboy. I was a tomboy, no doubt about it. In elementary school, I played sports and ran around the playground with the boys, shunning my female peers who at the time seemed more concerned with Lee press-on nails than with anything else. You guys know what Lee press-on nails are? Or is that age me? Okay, I was like, uh-oh. In junior high, I wore baggy men's jeans and shirts. It was very fashionable then. It wasn't until high school that I started dressing feminine or hanging out with other girls. Lucky for me, no one ever mocked me for being a tomboy. I was mocked for entirely different reasons, but that's a story for another day. The little boys in my class, however, who dared to like those conversations about Lee press-on nails or who shied away from sports, they had problems. They were called fags, pussies, and sissies. They were called girls. You see, it was understandable for me to want to be a tomboy and do boy things because men are better after all. But for a guy to want to be feminine, unthinkable. Now, while this double standard affects men negatively, it's mired in misogyny. The idea, of course, is that there's nothing worse than being a girl, which we've already talked about. Think about it. Girls can wear pants, boys can't wear skirts. Girls can play with trucks, but the minute I caught one of my little boy cousins playing with a doll when I was babysitting him, this is a true story, he threw it across the room with a look of shame on his face and pretended that he wasn't playing with it. Yeah, it was horrible. And he was 3. So you pick up on that really quickly. It's demeaning to be female, and boys learn that from an early age. Stephen Ducat, who wrote The Wimp Factor, says that femophobia, the fear of being feminine, affects men's identity acutely from the time they're children. Ducat writes that anxious masculinity, and I love that term, makes men so concerned with appearing manly, or unwomanlike, that they'll do just about anything to seem masculine, which is basically anything that isn't feminine. In fact, society is so unabashed in its hatred of all things feminine that one of the easiest ways to punish men is simply to feminize them. A South Carolina prison has taken to punishing sexually active prisoners by dressing them in pink jumpsuits. An Arizona prison makes its inmates wear pink underwear all the time. Thai police officers who step out of line, they're forced to wear pink Hello Kitty armbands. Guy friends have even told me of hazing rituals, whether for frost or sports teams, where young men are put in dresses as a way to demean them. My personal favorite, an Australian joke website, because being womanlike is just hilarious, called Man Cans, who features men, it's like commercials, who act girly, like crying at a movie, suddenly growing breasts as punishment. Yeah, you can't get much clearer than that. But the consequences of being a girl go way past man boobs and pink underwear. People are actually killed for transgressing gender norms. You need look no further than the violence committed against transgender people every day. And though society looks down on both men and women who identify outside of their assigned gender, there is a special disdain reserved for men who are feminine. Julia Serrano, does anyone know her? Yeah. Woo! Yes, I have a massive crush on her. Kick-ass author of Whipping Girl, a transsexual woman on sexism and the scapegoating of femininity, says that sexism not only targets women for being women, but targets people for because of their femininity. And this is Serrano's stuff. The idea that masculinity is strong, tough, and natural, while femininity is weak, vulnerable, and artificial continues to proliferate, even among people who believe that women and men are equals. People who are feminine, whether they be female, male, and/or transgender, are almost universally demeaned with respect to their masculine counterparts. This scapegoating of those who express femininity can be seen not only in the male-centered mainstream, but also in the queer community, where effeminate gay men have been accused of holding back the gay rights movement, and where femdykes have been accused of being the Uncle Toms of the lesbian movement. So it's not just the usual suspects on this one. It seems that we've all bought into hating all things femme. I'll read one more. I think, am I running out of time?
Yeah.
Am I good? Okay. I'll read one more. I like this one. He's angry, she's PMSing. I'm not an angry person, but I'm a passionate person, so I've heard this a lot. While in a fight with a man, or anyone for that matter, how many times have you been accused of being on the rag? Or being unreasonable or emotional? I'm guessing plenty. When men are angry, they're just angry. When women are angry, they're on the rag, or neurotic, or crazy, or being PMSy. I had a boyfriend not so long ago who, whenever we got into an argument, would accuse me of going soap opera. "Here comes Telemundo," he would shout. He's a charming guy. His clearly gendered and vaguely racist insult was supposed to make me feel like my anger wasn't valid, that it was frivolous and silly, and that I was being overdramatic. This was his not-so-subtle way of trying to shut me up, by accusing me of being emotional. Unlike men, whose anger is always logical, of course. Unfortunately, calling me out like this often worked. It felt immobilizing to be called dramatic. Even if you know you're being reasonable, we've internalized sexism so much, sometimes we even begin to doubt ourselves. Thankfully, that relationship didn't last, but the lesson I learned did. When men get angry, they're taken seriously. It's assumed that they have a reason to be so upset, but it seems that whenever women have the gall to express anything other than effusive chipperness, we're accused of having PMS or being nuts. We're laughed at or mocked. Calm down, little lady. Women, it seems, aren't allowed to be just plain pissed off. I think a lot of this comes from the idea that women are supposed to be feminine and docile. Anger doesn't fit into the sexist ideal of women as quiet and forever smiling. That's why you'll often hear feminists being accused of being angry right along with being called manly. It's a way to try to stifle women's anger and by proxy our voices. When you think about it, it makes sense that society, especially men, would want to keep women's anger under wraps, because we have a lot of stuff to be upset about. Living in a sexist world is no walk in the fucking park. But what better way to ignore sexism than make women quiet down? If a woman is too nervous about being called neurotic to get angry about things in her own life, how can she speak out against injustices in the world at large? I can't tell you how many times someone has asked me, when they hear that I'm a feminist, asked me why I'm so angry, or told me to lighten up. Or, you know, I just thought of this as I was reading this. Have you ever walked down the street and some dude says to you, "Why aren't you smiling?"
Yeah.
I fucking hate that. Sorry, it just kicked me. If we complain we're being rude or loud or obnoxious, if we're angry, there must be something wrong with us. I believe that's why so many women direct their anger inward. Instead of getting angry at the beauty industry that tells us we're fat, we diet and develop eating disorders. Instead of fighting with the girl in junior high who pissed us off, we called her a slut behind her back. All because nice girls don't get mad. And I think that we know that keeping all these things inside isn't exactly the healthiest way to deal. In fact, a study on women in anger showed that women disproportionately keep things bottled up and suffer physically because of it. We get headaches, depression, heart disease, you name it. I'm not saying that anger doesn't affect men's health as well, but men are allowed to vent in a healthy way without being mocked or ridiculed. Women aren't. Think about how many times someone has said it's cute when you get angry. When women are shown as mad or angry, we become caricatures. The pissed off man-hating feminist, the neurotic girlfriend, and of course nothing so stereotyped like the classist, racist, sexist combo of the angry black woman, all caps. Black women are constantly portrayed in the media and elsewhere as perpetually pissy, usually for comedic effect, because women's anger is funny. And at the end of each of these little things, I have a so what to do and kind of some advice on, you know, things to do and how to battle back against it. So that's all I'm going to read, and I just wanted to say before we go on to Q&A that while a really big part of my work is trying to bring young women into feminism, it's also about recognizing the incredible feminist work that young women are doing every day that we don't often get credit for. And I think that looking around this room and seeing these women here who organize this thing is proof enough that feminism is not only alive and well, but that it's fun, that it's energized, and that it's increasingly youth-led. So that's all for me, and I think